Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft and more. I'm your host Edith, and joining me for this episode is returning guest, friend of the podcast and neighbor, Kimberly Sullivan. And she has brought her friends Elaine, Carolyn, Christy and Kay. And dear listeners, we are not going to talk about football. Yes, I said the F word, live with it. No, so we are not going to talk about football today. We are going to talk about a book called Feisty Deeds 2, Historical Tales of Batches and Brews. So, ladies, hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion. So, no football talk.
We could if you wanted it.
I know.
FIFA just left Seattle, so.
Okay.
I mean, Houston.
Yeah, since Austria stayed longer in the tournament for at least a little bit than Germany. So, yeah, well. There you go.
And a lot longer than Italy.
Well, it happens to the best, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, I said no football, but I said we are going to talk about Feisty Deeds number 2, and I have the mug to prove it. And ladies, your contributions were twofold. You contributed as a writer and you also contributed as an editor. And I wanted you to ask, what were the requirements to be in this anthology? Who would like to start? Maybe Kimberly, I will ask you first. What were the requirements?
Okay, great. Yeah, no, this is our, as you know, Feisty Deeds 2, our second anthology. So we've done the Feisty Deeds 1 and Feisty Deeds 2. We're now preparing for our third edition. However, yes, we set it up within the Women's Fiction Writers Association. We're all members of that, and we're all members of the historical fiction group. So all people who love historical fiction and write in historical fiction. So as long as people were members of the group, they could send in their story to be considered for the collection for both of them. And it had to be historical period, which for some of your listeners, historical fiction actually is 50 years in the past, surprisingly. And it could be set from anywhere. 3,000 words was our limit, which is 10 to 11 pages, basically. So the stories are actually quite short, and a lot of our readers seem to enjoy that. And then, yes, we had to make the very hard decision to select some stories and then to work with the authors and to get them into our collection. And yes, the second one, the Feisty Deeds 2, also has a theme, as you've seen, of batches and brews. So it's really along the theme of food, drink, poison, and all kinds of other interesting things.
You just said the definition of historical is 50 years in the past. So that explains the patina on my skin then.
I think we're all a little bit shocked by the 50 years, yes, even those of us who write it. But yes, the 1970s is now historical, sadly.
And another question for you. You said it has to be historical, it has to be about women.
Yes.
And Elaine, may I ask you, it's not just historical and female in this book. It's across the whole world, actually. When you look at where these stories are set, you find the whole world in there.
That's right. And we were really pleased with, especially with Feisty Deeds 2, that we had a story set in Beijing, which was a thrill for us. And because most of us, of course, are in the United States, if not North America. But we all have very vivid imaginations and have most of us have traveled a fair bit. So, we were able to cross boundaries nationally and internationally just in our minds to come up with our stories.
And Carol, may I ask you then, how did you decide which stories to choose? I guess it was hard to choose just those which are in the book and make it not that thick.
Absolutely, yes. Difficult, We used a variety of criteria because what we were looking at was not just the quality of the individual stories, which of course is quite important, but also how they would fit together with enough variety, but also how they could be organized. Because with both of the Feisty Deeds volumes, we didn't want just to throw all the stories in with no order. We wanted to find some themes that would group them. With Feisty Deeds 2, we chose themes that had to do with the kind of geography where batches of brews were being produced, whether it was water, sea, river, mountain, farm, etc. So that was one thing to bear in mind as we were choosing our stories. We also wanted to have, as Elaine was just mentioning, as much global distribution as we could. And that is something that I think as we proceed with our multiple volumes, we're being ambitious, that will expand. Because, of course, one tends to write what one is familiar with, and when the authors tend to be from the same kind of culture, the variety is more limited than if we have a broader base. It is broadening because the historical fiction affinity group of the Women Fiction Writers Association, we never try and use the initials alone, um, is also getting broader. So, we were pleased to have this a larger global distribution and also temporal. Christy wrote our most remote in history story with the 3rd century Ireland last time. And then we go up just to that moment of where history becomes contemporary, then we have to stop.
Yeah, you mean the one that takes place in Poland?
Yeah.
That's the recent one, yes. There's
That's
also one that
and
takes place
the 70s.
California,
on a
California in the 1970s.
yes, on a California commune, which is 60s, 70s, yeah. And the other criteria, by the way, I should say, we looked for stories not just that were already complete and in very good shape, but those that had a great deal of potential to be developed. Because as the 5 of us discovered, in trying to fit things together, but also in some of our authors are quite nude at the game, we have done a great deal of editing.
Hmm.
We hope appreciated and people have learned from what we did and not just been irritated.
I'm quite sure of that because I've talked to quite a few editors for the podcasts until now, and I mean, it's important to listen to your editor. Listen to your editor. It only makes your story so much better. Okay, may I ask, how did you divide the stories between you, or did each and everyone look over every story, or did you just divide them by, I don't know, time periods, or how did you do that?
So, a couple of ways. First, just simple math. We determined through the page count that we could accept about 25 stories. The first volume was 23 stories. Feisty Deeds 2 was exactly 25, so that was easy. We were each going to get 5 stories to do the initial read through and edits and communicate with the authors on any changes we thought might be necessary or any ways to develop the full arc of the story, which is often a common problem with folks who haven't written short stories before or just getting started in their writing careers. And so once we went through all of the submissions and narrowed it down to the 25 we felt were the strongest, there were certain stories that each of us kind of naturally felt akin to. And there were certain stories that had challenges in terms of the way they were currently written, that each of us, again, sort of felt like, okay, well, I can take that one on. I'm not sure I have the right mindset for this one, but I can do that one, right? And so that happens very naturally. It's happened very naturally in both volumes, where things just sort of land at the feet of the editor that
has kind of a connection to the story.
Right.
And what Carolyn was saying earlier about not being sure if if the authors always appreciated our notes, I would say that in general, it's been an incredibly positive experience for both us as editors, but also for authors who maybe are published authors and written lots of novel length works, but have not really dabbled that much in the short story field. And we have both ends of the spectrum in the stories, and I think that all of us, all 25 of us, because we indeed also contribute stories to the volume. I think all 25 of us came away from this volume in particular feeling really good about the process.
Okay. Christy, tell us a little bit more about the process of editing.
We
What
go
you
through.
did, especially your stories, maybe.
I think we all have so we do this in 3 rounds within ourselves, and then a 4th round that is a proofreader that we send to somebody else. So we were pretty consistent. So the first round, we looked at developmental issues, so big picture issues, and we talked about things together in the group. We all hashed them over. There were some stories that were like 3 meetings of like, I don't think there's an ending. I love the ending. It's not clear. I knew exactly what she meant. Like, this vocabulary is confusing. Every historical fiction writer knows this vocabulary. And I think that's really positive because if you go out into the world, different historical fiction writers like say this, I love an ambiguous ending. I hate an ambiguous ending. And we have different styles that we read, different periods that we read. It's pretty neat because, for instance, I'm a specialist in the Regency period. Kay rarely reads before the 20th century, and so that's a nice balance. That there's things that I'm like, oh yes, this is obvious, and Kay's like, it's not obvious, and that's a good perspective to me. So we just come at it from very different places. I think one of the reasons to circle back just briefly to the geographic diversity is one of the things is in this group, we have lived in a remarkable number of places. We have done a lot of moving around. That's something that's important to us. And our geographic diversity in the book isn't just imagination. People are bringing, like, there are multiple writers who English was not their first language, who were born in another country, who have spent significant portions of their lives in another country. And so they are writing from their experience and bringing us into their imaginations or, the imagination of the history of their country or their family's history. So anyways, the first round, we would go through and do developmental editing. And some of these stories were like, this is great. Can you clarify this paragraph? And some of the stories were like, took a lot of rounds. Like, what did you mean this character is going on? Because we had these really different views. Like, maybe lead us to one of these or another. Like, there was one story that like we couldn't figure out if the protagonist was supposed to be like a psychopathic character. Like if there was like something really wrong with her or we were supposed to be empathetic to her. And that can, and I think this is something neat in the short story world. Like you could not have a novel where that is confusing. That could be an interest. Like I would be okay with a writer writing a 10-page short story where you're like, is this character evil or not? Like, I can't tell. However, in this particular case, the writer was like, no, I don't want her to be evil. Let me clean this up. So sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. Sometimes there's not. But that first round, we try to go out of that. Like, is there anything glaring? Does everything make sense? Does it have a beginning, middle, and end? Do we understand who the protagonist is? Do we understand where we are? Does it start with a page and a half of boring detail and everybody is going to skip over this story, like actually start on page 3, So all of those big picture things. And then we moved it on. So Kay mentioned how we all stood with there's 25 stories. There's 5 of us. We all did 5 stories pretty intensely. And then we all switched. So we're on a different 5 stories. And then we went through and we did line edits. And so then you have a different person being like, actually, I don't know who's speaking here. This, once a story is cleaned up in terms of a lot of those big plot elements, you can often see something more. You can see, oh, this is an incorrect use of punctuation around dialogue. So that second round is much smaller, but really focuses in. And then we switched again. So we're all working on 5 different stories. And that was a pretty short, like, is there anything else that's egregious? And so that person was looking at the previous person's edits. Is there anything I'd add? And again, like, that's where we have the benefit of working together. Sometimes, your editor 2 was like, this is unclear. I don't like this vocabulary. And editor 3 would be like, I love that. That was my favorite line in the story. And so, we could discuss that because that often happens. Like, the places that can be ambiguous are the places that can be emotionally compelling or not. Sometimes you're like, it makes no sense. None of us make any sense. So we did the line edits in those 2 ways. And then that was like, okay, so that's 3 rounds. So all of us have worked on 15 of the stories intensely, making sure that none of us are working on our own, right? So it's all moving around. And then once that was done and it's formatted, then we sent it to an external person just to do proofreading, because the more you look at a story, the less you can see what's actually in it, the more your brain just makes sense of things. And so I know at that point when I'm working at a story, I'm like, I can't see anything anymore. So we did those 3 rounds. So the stories are really thoroughly edited. And I think that really helps. That makes it consistent. That's a good way for authors who can use that kind of professional guidance moving towards as they're moving forward. So that was our process. It was a pretty intense process. And again, there were some stories that it's just a couple notes at each level, and nobody is ever going to make a perfect story. Like, you always need editorial notes, but the level of editorial notes was really different from really different authors. And some authors can write a great story and their punctuation is like all over the place and need an editor to go over that. So we kind of caught them at those different places.
Pooh, sounds work intensive. What about time? Which time frame are we talking here, Carolyn? I mean, this sounds like a lot of organizing that has to be done. And when did you start the whole process? Finding the people, having them send in their stories, doing the editing, getting the proofreading done, and so on. What's the time frame for all this work?
That's an interesting question. Now that we're on Feisty 3, I'm going to see if I can remember, generally speaking, what our time frame has been. First of all, we meet together, usually weekly, by Zoom, across 9 time zones. So this usually means Kimberly is starving and ready for bed by the time that the rest of us are having breakfast. But we meet and we decide, are we ready to launch on the next volume? We are at the moment. We need a theme. And so we spend a lot of time just determining what is going to be some unifying theme so that we'll have the first one is Feisty Deeds. Well, I have it here. Historical fictions of daring women. And the other is the one that we're talking about now, Feisty Deeds 2, historical fictions of batches and brews. We feared for a while everybody was going to only write about poisons and we'd have a horror on. Fortunately, the later entries were a little more domestic. Then we put together very careful guidelines so that people don't make errors of length, kinds of protagonists, because we don't want, for example, to write about real historical figures. They can be in the thing, but the main protagonist for these stories needs to be fictional. So we have pretty detailed guidelines that we make available to the members who are eligible to contribute. Those are the ones that Kimberly mentioned at the beginning. Those who are members of the Historical Women's Fiction Writers Association, the Women Fiction Writers Association with the Historical Fiction Affinity Group. I won't say it again. Okay. We give several months for people to write their stories.
Hmm.
And then 1 month of reading period. This year, for example, it will be from August 15th to September 15th. We accept stories then. Then we close the window and start reading them ourselves. And it takes several months. And we have in the past aimed at publication dates to try to speed ourselves up and get a good moment to produce a book that would sell well. That didn't work very well this year because Amazon had a backup and problem with publishing right before the holidays, the winter holidays, which we had hoped to be our big push. And the book wasn't ready for months. The ebook was, but not the print book.
Except in
And
Europe.
Christy
Yeah,
was
just in the US. It was
That's
just
right.
a US
Kimberly got a
problem.
The rest of us had to wait 4 months. And then all of the editing that Christy was detailing and Kay takes a while. And we have a few things that are easy to do and other things that we have to hash over repeatedly. And of course, then we have to make decisions about who we're not going to accept. And that's difficult because we don't like to disappoint people. We like to work with what we've got. But you can't publish a book of 1,000 pages anymore. So it takes, I would say, a good 6 months from start to finish to get the call out and to do the reading and the editing. Maybe
It's
even a little
longer than
longer.
that. It's more like 9 months, I think.
Oh, 9 months. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I
It's like
having a
suggest,
9
baby, like
months.
yeah,
9 months
9
for the
months to
reading
give
and
birth.
editing, and then
Yeah.
more to put it together, another 3 months to get it formatted and up on the sales sites and things.
that's right.
And reviewed up for early
Right,
reviews on
yeah.
NetGalley.
Mhm.
So it's about a year and a
Right.
half, the whole process, but that includes getting early reviews, getting it out for editorial reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
basically start to finish.
Yeah, okay. It still sounds very, very fast. I mean, getting those people together, you said weekly Zoom calls, but also getting the authors to contribute and be on a time, on a deadline.
Right.
That's the
But if
writing
you
world.
if you
Yeah,
think
I
about the amount of literary journals that publish monthly or publish seasonally 4 times a year, it really gives you an appreciation, at least it's given me an appreciation for the volume of work that those editors do in a much tighter format. And as Carolyn and Elaine both specified, we did spend, I would say, easily 7 months between conceiving of this year's theme, giving folks time to write to that theme, giving folks a very set 30 days in which they could submit, and many things come in last minute, then giving ourselves time to just read through everything without making any decisions, and then going into the decision-making process. And then another couple of months of back and forth with each of the authors. So, as Elaine and Kimberly both reiterated, I think that the fact that we have put out 2 volumes within a 3-year period is a fairly good pace for this type of a volume,
Yeah.
but by no means the kind of yeoman's work that literary journals do on a monthly time period. So, yeah.
And taking back a step or two, my next question, since it's already a book too, but still, who came up with the initial idea of doing something like that? I mean, was it during a meeting, Zoom or in person? Who knows? Ladies, I've got this idea. It was a nice evening yesterday and had a little bit too much red wine, and I thought maybe it could be fun. So, who would like to answer? Whose idea was it, and who came up with it?
But-
Who would like to go?
Well,
Kimberly.
I can maybe mention when we started, because we were, as a group, as a historical affinity group, we were trying to come up with ideas that we could support one another more as authors. And I think we were looking into the new year what we could do. And that's where the idea came up of maybe it would be a good idea to do an anthology. And in fact, it is really nice way to get, because I mean, we are a big group. Not everyone joins. Our historical affinity group meets once a week, but not everyone joins the meetings. There are different time zones. People are busy. So I have to say, this is a really nice way to get to know our fellow authors and what they write, the areas that they write, their areas of expertise. So it really has been a learning process for all of us. We are part of the group, but this is not a Women's Fiction Writers Association anthology. We do this separately. So we came together, the five of us, as co-editors, and we decided to take this idea forward. And this was great because, I mean, some of us knew one another, but we hadn't really worked together. And what I think is really remarkable is that, after 3 years of working together, over 3 years of working together, I mean, we really do work very well together. As Christy said too, we all have very different strengths and different things we bring to the table. I mean, one of the things we mentioned in the process is Elaine is a brilliant book formatter. So we are very fortunate that she does all of our book formatting as well. And so we all have different things that we like doing that are areas of strength. We've worked really well together, which isn't easy when you have to make these tough decisions. As I think Christy and Carolyn were also saying, some are very easy and you just know, yes, we want this core of stories. But the others, we have different tastes. We're looking at it. So we do a lot of back and forth. But it's always been really nice this way. So the experiment was that was going to be like putting one anthology together to find a way to promote our group, wound up becoming something a lot longer and something going towards our third volume. So I think that the idea was to work together and to promote our work, which is fun to market a collection. And we have heard that from all the other authors. They really enjoy this joint promotion. And, when they go to libraries sometimes or book events, sometimes if they're in the same area, they go together. So it can be really fun. But it's really grown into something else, which has been considered to be quite positive by the group. And I think for us, the five of us, despite all the work that Kay and Carolyn especially were laying forth of what we have to do, it really is a lot of fun.
Kimberly just said the formatting, and we're not talking about just language and getting all the commas and the full stops in the right place, but formatting seems to be a challenge. Whatever you do on a device like those we use at the moment, Elaine. How much work beforehand was involved before you got it all right?
Oh, it depends.
Do tell, come on.
So, without going into too many boring details, basically, if I have software that does the formatting, I tell it what we want it to look like. And if the full manuscript file of any authors, if it goes into the software looking or being perfectly formatted in terms of this is the title, this is a paragraph, this is a scene break, it comes out looking pretty good too. And then all I have to do is a bunch of tweaks, make sure it's perfect. But it's like any other piece of software. If you put garbage in, garbage comes out. So, basically, the thing that takes me the longest is to get all of the stories, individual stories, formatted or in as good a shape as possible before I put them into the formatting software. And a lot of authors don't really know how to use a word processing program. Microsoft Word, for example, to make a paragraph or make a page break or something like that. So luckily, I've been using Word since it first came out, basically in the 1980s.
I mean, rest assured, not even the 14-year-olds know how to use Word sometimes.
Well, I'm sure they don't.
That's true.
They just, but I do. I've been using it a long time.
Yeah, there
So
you go.
yeah, I'm really nitpicky that way. Plus, I was a tech writer for decades, so everything had to be perfect. So
I get that. And Chrissy, you mentioned you have to get the language of the time right. I mean, especially you wrote one of the stories, which is the farthest back in time. How challenging was it for you as editors, or how much research is involved for an editor when you think of those details, getting the language right? Who would like to answer?
I mean,
Christy, yeah, go on.
around language. Oh, yeah. Around language itself, there's a lot of debate because obviously we do not actually write, many of these take place in foreign countries. Like we're not writing in Chinese, we're not writing in ancient Irish if we even knew what they spoke. Like we're not even writing in the way that somebody would in the early 19th century. And so there's always a balance between what is going to sound right to the modern ear and be pleasant to read while still being historically accurate. So that's a balance that different historical fiction writers take in different ways. And we definitely try to preserve voice. That said, you watch things like Metaphor and, it's like, well, they didn't have trains in those days, or, this came from a certain period. I would say what we do more with research, and oftentimes too, so some people come in and they are writing about something that they've spent 30 years researching. And it's like, wow, like we've learned something new. But a lot of people do try something different for a short story. And sometimes people are newer in the historical fiction space, or they're dabbling in something. And that's another place where our 5 of us come in handy. And there are definitely questions when we're like, wait a minute, like this religious reference sounds wrong to me. I think these people came from somewhere else. Like there have been some pretty major things we've sent back to the authors and been like, actually, when we talked about this, like my first career was a musician. I've seen some musical things that I'm like, wait a minute, you can't use those words.
We're all thinking of the same story, Edith.
Okay.
That took some technical rewriting. Like Kimberly's lived in some different places in the world. Like we come from really different backgrounds, and I think all of us have called up some historical things, or either in our editing rounds, and sometimes it's the main, you're looking at it and you're like, how did this work? And sometimes we ask, I'll always ask the authors, we'll always involve them, and sometimes they've sent back like, oh, actually I was looking at this document, and we're like, oh, that's really interesting, that's different than the typical thing. Could you just add a sentence, like cueing us into that you're talking about something specific? Because when we look at this, this group of people in general, people might assume this or whatever. And so sometimes it's that simple. We just didn't know what they're looking at. Sometimes authors are like, I don't know, I never considered that, And so we end up doing a lot of research. It's fun. I've learned about some really random things that I never would have researched myself. I think as historical fiction writers, we all adore this stuff. We're like, actually, what prayers did the Puritans say? We get in these long rambles about it, but it's
Good question. Never
We
thought
have had
about that.
interesting discussions.
Right.
We do, and so that is an interesting thing that we do too, and that comes out in the editing, and that is so neat with this many people working on it. I don't know, it's running a gauntlet for the authors. They're like, woo, can I get it past these people who've lived on it? Can I get it past the person who's lived in that country?
I mean, historical fiction is always a challenge, one way or the other. And do editors fall into the rabbit hole of research then?
Sometimes. I mean, if it strikes our fancy, definitely, or mine, definitely, I'll go down that rabbit hole, even if it has nothing to do with my main, subject or area of writing. But I think we all do that. Luckily, I don't think we all do it for all the stories.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah,
I should
otherwise
say
they would.
also that we don't always come to an agreement, and when something is just Could be one way, could be another. We leave it to the author. It's your decision. It's your story.
Okay. Because it makes me think of what one historical author once said at the panel. She said, she's one who does meticulous research. And she said this it was about a female cycling club in London in the 19th century. It didn't exist, this particular club didn't exist. But she said it could have existed. Therefore,
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
That's why it's fiction. It could have.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And if
I think
something, I was just going to say, if an entity like that could have existed, I think it's important within the framework of the story that you give the reader the how it could have, and that without being too teachy. And that's another aspect to all of the stories when we're looking at it with the eyes of an editor is this a good story? Is it keeping me in the story as opposed to taking me out of the story to teach me something? And I think that that too often is maybe a mistake that a lot of first-time writers of short stories make, telling rather than showing. So there's a lot of that goes on. We also are so proud of the fact that we've been able to create a group of authors that have allowed us to keep our expenses down. And we have a budget that we adhere to. And Elaine has been like a gargantuan effort that has saved us hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Kimberly has reached out to cover artists that have also worked with us closely. And one of the reasons that I think folks have been willing to contribute their services, sometimes not at their normal rates, is because we are donating proceeds from the book to the Women's Fiction Writers Association Scholarship Fund. Okay, I said it for the last time during the interview. Anyway,
But I haven't said it yet.
The scholarship fund for WFWA gives away thousands of dollars each year to writers in need. So every copy of Feisty Deeds that's sold supports that fund and has been acknowledged by the WFWA board multiple times. And I serve on the scholarship committee, and even last week they were speaking fondly of the proceeds coming in from Feisty Deeds, which is really, I think, one of the best aspects of this whole process.
Since we were talking about research and what is consistent with the time the story takes place in, it reminds me of an interview. You maybe know what I'm talking about. It was with Mads Mikkelsen when about his film, which is set in the 16th or 17th century Denmark. And he was asked by a journalist, why are there no black people? And he said, it's the 17th century Denmark. There are no black people there. So I'm only asking because when you watch a film or a TV show, or even when you open a book these days, it has to be diverse. Even though, as in Mikkelsen's case, it wasn't that diverse. This was the thing back then, especially Denmark at the time. So how strict are you, or how strict were you when you did the editing, or did it not occur at all? So you don't have to answer this question if it's too.
I don't think that issue came up, did it?
We have a lot of stories that are ethnically diverse.
Yeah,
but I think also the role of women, we discussed that a lot, for instance. I mean, it doesn't have to be just, looking at the ethnic groups, but also looking at what women's roles are, because we have very interesting women in all of the stories. However, it does make sense that you would be within your community, even if you have different feelings. So I do recall that we had one character that it just didn't ring true. It was a very good story, but it didn't ring true for the time. And we just kept coming back to the author and saying, it doesn't really make sense that she, and in fact, the author understood, we spoke and did redo it. And it's a powerful story. It just felt too modern in some aspect. So I think that makes a big difference, because if you feel like you've got a woman in 2020 and she's in 1520, there's a problem, right? You are going to have different roles. So I think that you can still have the feelings that you're more ahead, but I think you would have to react with the time period itself.
Yeah.
So I think that is the aspect that we've fallen into more. For instance, our story in Beijing in Mao's Cultural Revolution, of two girls who are in Beijing, which I think is a lovely story. Yeah, it would make no sense if we said, okay, you have to just include. I mean, it was obviously going to be very Chinese at the time in 1970, what it was like. So, yeah, I think that it would, if something came up that didn't make sense at the time, then we would do that. But I think that Elaine is right that we didn't really face that issue. But I think in other aspects, we did come back to authors when they had a great character, but maybe there was something that made it feel not of the time.
Yeah.
Yes, no, the issue of um, reconciling contemporary social standards and desiderata with the past is something that all historical writers deal with, and really you have to be very careful with. And sometimes you can break expectations for a purpose, and that can be quite effective. But in a short story, you haven't got much room to do that. And I don't believe we've had any authors who deliberately try to mix up the historical record so radically that it no longer looks historical. So it's a delicate territory, because you also don't want just to replicate values of the past that one would not endorse. On the other hand, you want the past to come alive.
Yeah.
And it really is a balancing act sometimes. And I believe that, as Elaine suggested, all of our authors have been very mindful of that individually with their own stories.
That brings
I
me to
think we have
Sorry, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, I think we naturally have a lot of diversity because we've had authors who specifically are looking for that, who are writing stories about conflicts in history. One of my stories for the first volume was based on the first Black man who voted in England. Like, I'm looking at letters and historical records and making a fictional character based on that. Kay's writing about the social justice movement. We've had people writing about, just like about, first Chinese people in America. So people are choosing very well researched, very like poignant times in history to set their stories in. Nobody has thrown characters who don't belong into stories, but there's a lot of wonderful, interesting, juicy stories written in these moments.
Mm. But it also brings me to the other side of the coin, because the values of the past are so not our values. So there's the other delicate question: how incorporate those values of the past in the stories without, treading on people's toes, or people are so easily offended these days. Did you have to deal with that?
I think that within the stories is we've been so fortunate because we have authors that are diverse.
Mm.
And our first volume, one of my favorite stories in the first volume was written by a woman who had an indigenous background, and she wrote a story about the Indian Native American experience in Arkansas, I believe. And it was a wonderful story, very poignant. My own story, as Christy mentioned, am writing in the social justice space around civil rights, et cetera. And my own story in this last volume had a Black character as a protagonist, showing the struggles in the 1950s of the African American population in Dallas, Texas. And there are multiple stories that have shown Asian, Pan Pacific, Chinese, et cetera, characters. So I think the diversity of the protagonists, particularly in this last volume, uh, is a wonderful tool for people to understand the international, not just differences, but the similar traits that we all share. And I think that's kind of an unexpected bonus to reading the entire collection.
Mm.
But if I can add something in there, though, I think it's, well, one is also short stories, so 10, 11 pages, right? So you really have to get into the story. But I can think of two in this collection that I think cover quite heavy topics, but done in a really interesting way. No value added, because we can argue that what happened was horrible, but you're just getting you into the story. And one of them, in fact, is your neighbor a little bit more to the north. We have a Polish author in this that did the Lubień Cebularz, which is really, quite a beautiful story about the horrors of World War II, but shown through the eyes of a child. So a lot of it is misunderstanding things that she sees that she doesn't understand what it is. So, firebombing, she doesn't understand that at the time, or the bullets that are coming through, she thinks that they're bugs. She's very little. So you're seeing we understand it because we're reading it, but we're seeing it through her eyes as she's trying to get her father back home with the smells of the special buns that she makes. Another one is Carolyn's story, which is about quite horrific, the fighting in southern France between the Catholics and the Cathars, and it is, I mean, I can say it's quite a horrific story when you look about a mother who knows that her son is destined to die, but it's very poignant. And it's not, I mean, I as a reader wouldn't like it if I felt that we were getting a judgment by today's standard, because I have a hard time reading books like that, because it takes me out of it. But you're really in it in the moment, and you understand the horrors of the historical time. I mean, as we know, Europe has had a lot of bloody battles through the centuries, right? So she's really bringing us into that moment for maybe, some people who don't know that. But at the same point, what are we following? We're following the mother, and we're following her personal pain. So even if you don't know about the history and know about, these bloody battles that happened, throughout the whole region, you can really feel yourself part of the story. So I think that's nice. I wouldn't want to have, I mean, we understand the pathos of the moment, but we don't actually need any kind of, let's say, lecturing from this. We realize it's bad, but at the same point, we understand that it's a moment in time. So I personally have liked that in the story. And I think those are two very strong stories that get you right there, and you see what's happening, but we're so invested in the main character and her perspective that we're really living it.
Do you think that's also the appeal for readers to be right in the middle of the story? Short stories, I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely
important.
something we've
Go ahead,
found,
Christy.
we've seen in reviews. I think a lot of readers read, it's a fun chance to get a taste of things. Like, I personally would not read an entire novel set in the battle between the Cathars and the Catholics. But it was great to read it as a short story and get a little bit of that. It was, there's a lot of these that I would not read as a whole novel, just because, like, we can only read so much, right? It's not like, "Oh, I hate this. This is a terrible time." It's like, we can only read so much. There's new books coming out all the time. We have our time periods and our moods and whatever. And so I really love reading a short story collection. I think most of the five of us do, and that's one of the reasons that we've done this. I love a short story collection that gives you a chance to sample a whole bunch of different things. And, I think most of us as historical fiction readers, we want the emotions of reading a story, but we also want to learn something. And so you read 25 stories, and, like, I definitely learned 25 things in this. It's really neat. And so it is a really neat way to sample it, and that's something that we see in our reviews, and we hear the feedback a lot.
Do
I've-
female authors still not get the appreciation they should? Female authors, do they still not get the appreciation they should? Elaine, what do you think?
honestly, I don't think about it.
Which is a good sign.
I just read and write. I don't think about it. Actually, that's not quite true. I mentioned something in one of our meetings the other day that I didn't read. I specifically wasn't reading historical fiction written by men, because they didn't focus on the things that I was interested in. I mean, for military facts and things like that, they're great, fine. But for what I want, the emotion of the period, the deep dive into the emotions of the psychology, I don't think male authors give me what I want. So I mean, I think there are so many authors right now. I mean, everybody thinks they can write a book, right? But I think a huge majority of them now are women who have just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write this thing and see what happens. And so, no, in answer to your question, no. But maybe in the New York Times top 10 or something like that, maybe. But we all know now that that's not really a real thing, and we know now that it's not really a thing. It's how many books pre-sold or something.
Might this
Go
be
ahead.
also the reason why sometimes female authors still use their initials when they for the books?
Sometimes,
Depending
and
on what
especially
you're writing.
if I were going to write a book on military, strictly military, I would use my initials.
I've
Or a lot of
also heard from
thrillers
Elaine
or
is a pretty
murder.
girly name, so
Yeah.
how would I know about howitzers and stuff like that? Well, because I go down those rabbit holes. But I would probably use my initials. Luckily, I don't write those kinds of books.
I've also heard from female authors who use their initials. I mean, first of all, in some genres, the initials are just more common. Like, that's the way that things look. Like mentioning thrillers, men and women use their initials. But I've heard from a number of women and men who just simply don't want their gender to be a part of the discussion at all. Or it also provides more anonymity for people who, sometimes it's a pen name, or, people write either, I think there's G.L. Carragher and Gail Carragher, like she writes slightly different things using those different things. I don't think initials are specifically hiding. It's just making it less obvious. And again, that really depends on what genre you're writing in. I mean, I write in the romance subspace, and there you get it the other way around, where it's men using the pen name and initials. Actually, not initials. It's always a pen name. And something sweet for that. So I think it really depends on what space you're writing in, and many spaces are women dominated nowadays because women read so many more books than men do. Women are something like 80 or 90% of the market.
Yeah, true. I mean, and since I'm an avid reader of crime fiction, women always write the more bloody stories. Just saying, blood and gore.
That's me.
That's what women do very well. Absolutely. And what about I mean, it's a genre in itself, historical fiction, sub, and so on. But do you think that there is more interest in recent years in historical fiction?
I do.
Yeah.
I've done quite a few book signings at Barnes & Noble with my own works. And I have in my last couple of signings, I've been giving away I do a giveaway, and the giveaway is a volume of Feisty Deeds. And I've had so many young people stop at the table and asking about the anthology and the centuries that the different stories cover, the time periods that are involved, et cetera. And they're fascinated. And I think part of the benefit of the amount of information that's out there across the internet or across the globe right now, has the interesting effect of young people realizing that there's so much they're not learning in an hour-long class in college or high school or even junior high school. And I think they're wanting more, particularly in history that affects their current situation or maybe their families. And with the advent of 23andMe and Ancestry.com, people are interested in digging into their familiar roots, and I think all of those things combine to a renewed interest in history, but not just the typical facts we're taught in school. They want to hear the backstories. And I think that's where historical fiction serves that audience the best.
Yeah, I do get it. I mean, I teach history in middle school. There's not always time for the facts, for the in-between things, unfortunately. But I always listen to history podcasts.
Yeah.
They're great today.
My middle school history teacher is one of the reasons I write. He used to act out various events. He had been a theater minor in school, and he would literally act out different historical events for the class to make it come alive.
Yeah, I do get it.
Yeah.
We did act out the Battle of Gaugamela, but yeah, well,
With middle school students, so
Yes,
I
of
mean, you
course.
get paid for that.
Well, at least a teeny tiny part of it, so that they can get an idea how Alexander the Great's phalanx worked, how it was possible to defeat the Persians. But yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah, no, they love to do this in Rome, so you do the whole
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
about getting
I know.
the kids love it. It's fabulous, so I can imagine that they were
Yeah. I mean, what I'm always wondering is how do we get, since we mentioned middle school and so on, how do we get people to read? Is it people who do not read? I mean, I can't even imagine that, but they exist.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you there, absolutely. And there are even authors who do not read, which is even more baffling. But anyway, is or are short stories a good introduction for people who are a bit, hesitant to take up a book and start the process of reading? Maybe?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's certainly I tend to think of it from my demographic, which is like 40, 50-year-old women and older. But yes, I think so, because then you've got this discrete chunk. You can start it and you're finished with it pretty quickly. And maybe it piques enough interest, the story or the form, that you think, oh, that was cool. I'll go. Maybe there's another one I'll like. I know my son used to read a lot of short stories when he was in middle school. He didn't have a lot of time to do outside reading with all the studying. And then, of course, he's always been a reader. And
I don't know the answer to that question because I think that while short stories have the advantage of being short, so if you're not sure that you want to read, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to find out. At the same time, the satisfaction that a short story can deliver is different from the satisfaction that a novel can deliver. And I think what gets children and young adults reading are really good plots. And that often means that things like the Hunger Games series in English, or obviously Harry Potter. I think that sparked a huge amount of reading among people of a certain age, and those are long books. Maybe it helped that they could watch the movie alongside it eventually. So I'm I'm curious about your question. How do you get people to read? I think it's a way to spark an interest,
Mm,
but I'm not sure that the length of what you're reading is really the key. It may be for some
mm,
people.
mm,
If you are learning how to read, if you're learning how to read in a new language, surely a short story is an easier bite to chew than a whole novel. And maybe early readers are more like that. But I'm actually not sure. I can't quite remember myself how I became such an avid reader, but I think it was with books.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, if you
Yeah, go
If
on.
you look at the actual statistics, I mean, I think there's certainly individuals who would find short stories, either a good way to keep reading when they can't read much, it's maybe a busy time of life or
Yeah.
whatever. But you look at statistics and novellas sell better than short stories and novels sell way better than novellas. I have a novella series and so I've talked to various writers and most writers say if they switch from novellas to novels or they have series of both, their novels sell about 10 times better. Like people like full length work. And I think it goes back to what people are looking for in a book. Like if people want this, they can open up their phone and there's a lot of short videos that give you like a short thing. Like I know my young adult son, um, watches a lot of reels on Instagram or whatever, but he loves the history ones. Like he's thinking the same things that we've just been talking about.
Mm,
Like he comes
mm,
up and he's like, "So, did you know the linguistic group from the Magyars came across Europe in the 3rd century?" Like he's getting that from TikTok Reels or from Instagram Reels actually. So it's not that that isn't out there. I think especially young people, when they want a book, they want to sink into it. Like you look at the aesthetics around it, you look at the way people are talking about it, and it is that like, get a blanket. I'm going to escape from the world. Like I'm tired, like this needing to sink into a book, this needing to fully escape, to immerse yourself somewhere else, and that's what I really see young people talking about. And again,
mm,
being in the romance space, I'm on social media, I'm, like, looking at that. I know a lot of writer and reader friends who are much younger than I am. I'm in my mid-40s. Um, and that's really what I see, and so I think short stories are not actually appealing to them because they have so much short media. Again, there's individuals. Like it's all individuals. Short stories
yeah.
never sell as well as novels, but I think that has been an interesting thing that I've explored over the last couple of years that wouldn't be what I would have guessed. Like
Mm,
I find short stories an easy medium, but actually statistically like novels are what pulls people into reading.
mm. As you just said, it depends on the person because I had a discussion with a student of mine and he said, "A book 400 pages? Of course I'm not reading this."
Yeah.
Short of calling me crazy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on that person, and it's not there's no advice that
Yeah.
works for everybody, and that's why I think it's great. We have all these options, and we have novels, and we have short stories, and we have
Yeah.
short story collections by one author. There's short story collections that are, in a shared world. That's another thing that some people like to dip in and out of. You might have an anthology where everything is set in the same world or with the same characters. I've seen those both with single author and multi-author collections. And so that's a different experience to dip in and out of. I think it's wonderful how many options there are
Mm,
out there. You can read anything
yeah.
you want. And yes, our collection is deliberately you get something different every time you
Mm,
turn the page or every time you turn the story. Like not every page, that would be
mm,
confusing.
yeah.
um,
And one more question for all of you, since you were doing this as a group and you had so many authors and being in the field of indie publishing, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you worked and published these 2 books so far? Who would like to go first? Kay, you would like to go first? Maybe?
Wow.
I think I think it wasn't a challenge as much as it was the thing that probably took us a minute, and that was how are we going to do this? How is this process going to work across, as Carolyn said, 9 time zones? How is this process going to work across 5 different writing careers? How can we remain respectful of each other's other responsibilities and commitments and still hit the deadlines we want to hit? And so I think that took a minute for us to sort that out. Volume 2 became much easier in terms of that shared responsibility. But I think learning how to share when you've been an individual writing your own work, and yeah, you share it with a beta reader, you share it with a developmental editor, but you're only beholden to yourself, more or less. Whereas with this, there are 5 of us, there are 25 authors. There are a lot of other folks to consider within this creative process. And I think that that in general was the initial challenge.
Carolyn, what about you?
Well, I'd like to follow up with what Kay just said. As an individual, I would say the biggest challenge I have faced is frankly writing my own story. Because
Yeah.
short stories don't come easily to me. And that's a challenge that I welcome, but it sometimes has brought me up short. But I wanted to follow up with what Kay just said, and that is, I've done a lot of writing of different sorts over 2 careers, and I've worked sometimes with other people, and I think the 5 of us have been extraordinarily lucky. We have fit together so well. I didn't know anybody before I joined the group and said, "Yes, I think I'd like to be an editor." I'd done other kinds of editing. I'd never done a short story collection. And initially, you think, how on earth are 5 people who don't know one another, who are not in the same area at all, going to manage this? And it has been so smooth in terms of responsibility, shared responsibility, coordination, and cooperation that I just really appreciate it. It's a challenge that was so much easier than it could have been to meet.
Elaine, what about you?
Everyone agrees with me.
I absolutely agree with what Carolyn said. It's just serendipity or something. I don't know what, that the 5 of us get along so well. That is just luck. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's fabulous. But the hardest thing for me, besides people not knowing how to use the format of file, is telling people no, your story has not been accepted. Because sometimes they don't like that it hasn't been accepted. And they want to know why. And then you kind of have to, but you still want to remain at least friendly with these people because they are in your bigger group and everything else. So yeah, that for me has been the hardest part is telling somebody no. And we've had good reasons for saying no. We're not just arbitrary or anything like that. But that is hard.
Well, Christy, what about you?
I'm gonna be awful here and say I don't really have an answer for that. To me, like, obviously, there are moments that are frustrating. Like, it's frustrating when Amazon doesn't act up or you get an angry email or whatever. But overall, like, in the world of writing, this is the candy. Like, it's really nice to work with other people. There's so much in writing that is just this constant obligation, and you never know if you're getting it right, and there's no feedback until like the last moment, and you send this book out in the world, and like, are people gonna hate it, or nobody's gonna notice it, or whatever. And this is just such a nice contrast. It's so nice to have shared responsibility. There's nothing that it's like, I made this mistake and it's ruined everything forever, because somebody's going to call me on the mistake before it goes out. And it's just been really, really nice. alongside trying to have my own career and do all these things that are so responsible and it's not responsibility, it's this you're just on the ball for everything all the time, all the marketing, all the writing, all the editing, like people telling you that it's 2 days late when they never told you what the due date was, like just this constant rush of publishing. And to have this that we make the deadlines and then we fix them together and we make the decisions together and 25 people are marketing the book and nobody expects a short story collection to like be a bestseller because it is what it is. This is like Kay was saying, she uses it, for her giveaways. Like this is an extra thing for a lot of us. And it just is fun. It really is a nice, fun balance. And I love working with other people.
And a good way to hone your skills, maybe?
Yeah.
Christy's skills are already very, very good. And she knows how to format Word files.
Good for you, Christy.
Kimberly does as well.
Kimberly, are you still there?
I think
she
she's
froze.
frozen.
Yeah.
She may have frozen. And we were going to give her the last word.
Yes. I'm not sure if she realizes that she's frozen or maybe she's already watching football. Who knows? No, she's not.
I think her face would have had different expressions if she was watching football.
Yeah, probably. Who knows?
You've been so generous, though, Edith, with your time. And this has been such a fun conversation for all of us.
It was my absolute pleasure, ladies.
It really has been fun. You can tell we like each other.
Yeah, I can tell, absolutely. I was hoping Kimberly would be on again, but is she coming back? Is she aware? Is she... Who knows?
I was going to see if I could shoot her an email.
She might hear us. Yeah, she's gone and she might come back. If she's gone, she might come back.
I do want to add just one thing. I think the one thing we don't want to give the impression of is that this is something
I could hear everything. Can you hear me now?
An anthology that creating an anthology is not easy necessarily. But I think it takes an awful lot of thought and prep work in terms of creating a schedule and then adhering to that timeline. And I think if there are folks out there that have a group of writers they're associated with, whether it's a formal organization or maybe it's their critique group within their region, etc., this could be a wonderful project within any given genre. But it does take a lot of work, and it takes having folks work together that really adhere to deadlines and timelines. And if you've got that, then I think you've got a recipe for success.
Yeah, absolutely. Kimberly, we're still waiting for your challenge. What was the biggest challenge for you?
Just getting the schedule and getting the timeline and the things that we learned from the first to the second edition that we were able to improve. And we hope to improve in the third edition as well. But I think really getting that, we work well together. We really like working together. As Christy said, I mean, writing is a solitary profession. So it is nice to have, even if we're doing that in our own writing, that in our anthology, we're really working together and counting on one another. But I think that we get better as we go on of knowing how it works and how we can make a better collection and how to work more efficiently.
So your fans are already looking forward to book number 3 then?
We hope so.
Yeah. Very certain they are. Ladies,
we hope so.
I'm sure of it. Ladies, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
Mm.
Maybe that both anthologies are available on Amazon and benefit the Women
Read
Writers
short
Fiction
stories.
Association
They're
Scholarship
wonderful.
Fund. So not only are you buying great stories, but you're also doing a good work at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're available. Ebooks are available on all the major platforms: Kobo, Nook, Apple Books, as well as Kindle.
And Barnes & Noble.
Absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. Ladies, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you for making time for me.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
for
having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Please-
Edith.
You're most welcome. Please wait for me in the green room. I will be with you shortly.
Okay.
Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as my wonderful guests and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I do hope you will tune in for another episode. Until next time.